Now, I did a lot of work on the steering mechanism. Everything was stuck on it, everything. Didn't tilt. I had to heat it up, take it apart. Didn't steer. So I ended up taking the cylinder out. Heating up in here. Real hot, staying away from the spring. You don't want to heat the spring. Just heat the heck out of this area. And also down here, after I removed the inner O-ring and nylon bushing, I heated it in here. This is where it gets stuck mostly. Up here too, but this is the most prone area to get stuck. But I heat both areas real well. Maybe, you know, 5-10 minutes on each end. And then I put a bolt in here on the very end, one of the bolts that go through there, and I take my rawhide mallet and I smack it. And smack it. It took a while, some pretty hard hits, and it finally started to move. Reheat it again, both ends, a little WD-40, smoked up the place. Try not to breathe it in, and just keep doing it, and finally came apart. So now it steers really nice and easy. I cleaned all the salt away from where it was rubbing. And also in this motor, which doesn't happen very often, because everything is salt water around here. When these motors sit for years and years and years, all I did was put a vice grip on here, and about 5 or 10 minutes heat all around it. I go through propane like crazy. MAP gas, I mean. And I got both of them to free up. So that's a burden. And I also freed up the steering friction. It's another thing that gets stuck all the time. So it's like, you know, it's a routine after a while. It's the same stuff on all the motors, same stuff. You just get used to doing it. And the motor itself, I took it completely apart. Here's my 55. Everything is apart on it. I got another block. I cleaned up the pistons. Made them serviceable. My Scotch-Brite on the skirts, like I did in that one video. I think it was the 5615. I demonstrate how to do it, and I use a wire brush on the bench grinder to do the heads of the pistons. And I also honed the cylinders. They came out really nice. And it's a late, I end up using the late 60s block, the 18 block. It's the same block. It's 22 cubic inches. Same exact casting numbers. The crank was good. I ended up changing the top bearing and the middle one. The middle one was a little rusty, but I changed the top one because it was kind of noisy. So I changed the middle one and the top one on that. The recoil I cleaned up. Got it to spin. There's no spring in it yet. I'm going to take it apart again and sandblast everything. And well, it looks pretty nice on these. If you sandblast them, you can either leave them prime or paint them flat black, or sandblast them and clear coat them. I also cleaned up the flywheel, as you can see. Here's the pull cord, still good, nylon. The coils were good. I managed to get the coils off, but this plate was so corroded where the springs, where the wires go into the coils on this one side, totally gone. This side's still good, but this side, I have a box full of these things, probably 25, 30 of them in the box. So I'll use that. What else? Water pump. The only thing I didn't take apart was the gear case. Everything else is dissected. The lower pan, all the 4 mounts were good, except one on one side. This is the bracket that bolts to the midsection, which broke on this one side. So I just broke it to take it apart. The nuts were so frozen I couldn't get it off. But all the rubber mounts were good, so I just got to replace the hardware and that bracket. Also the tiller. I freed up the tiller. This is all gonna get degreased. The only reason I didn't do it already because it's so cold out. But that's ready to go back together, degreased and back together. And this I freed up when I first got the motor. The gear shift lever wasn't frozen, which was nice. What else? I cleaned up the reeds. Stainless reed plates. I don't know what year they went from copper to stainless. I think somewhere in the 60s. The stops are good. I cleaned them all up, wire brushed them. I had to replace the little drain flap. It was totally gone on this originally. It was rusted away. So I even had to use heat to get this screw out. Without heat, you're dead with these saltwater motors, taking them apart. You gotta have heat. It's already back together, discolored, but serviceable. Put gaskets on both sides, you'll never know the color of it. You never see the corrosion. What else? That's pretty much it. A lot of work. I would say labor, total labor, probably about 5 hours. 5 or 6 hours of labor taking this thing apart because so many bolts were broke. I changed one mount already. One of these nuts broke. One side I changed the mount, and I got to find the mount for the bottom. That was broke. You can repair them, but I'm going to just replace the mount. There's a lot involved. Nothing's really, you know, catastrophic as far as, you know, to fix. You just got to do it, you know. Make a list if you have to, and just do one at a time. Knock them out and do it, and get it back together, and hopefully back on the back of somebody's boat again. So stay tuned. Start putting the power head together probably next. That seems like the smart thing. There's my heater I use, with DeWalt 70,000 BTUs. There's the oil that came out of the lower unit. Amazingly enough, decent shape. All this came out of the recoil top plate. The spring was rusted away, about 10 pieces, so I threw it out. Just to give you an idea. This engine must have been upside down in the salt water. It's the only way I could figure it out. Carburetor was clean. That's crazy stuff. Well, after I just, you know, pretty much cleaned all that junk away, you know, I scraped it. I used this first. And I come back with this. And I'll do the same to this too. You see how bad it is. Clean it all up, put a new spring in it. The rope is still good. The mechanism is in good shape. The center hub was stuck. I freed the hub up. Had to smack it out. Came out pretty easy. But that's the recoil refurbish.